let's talk about Donald Trump, his cabinet, his administration appointments, and kind of just the general setup for him to come in on January 20th, because everything is getting moving now. I mean, today, Trump met with Biden at the White House, and this is Donald Trump has started to name a number of people, including Elon Musk. Because yesterday, Donald Trump announced that he was creating, quote, the Department of Government Efficiency. Oh my God. The Department of Government Efficiency. And yes, that's right, DOGE. Get it? Do ya? And to run this new DOGE, Trump tapped both Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, with critics immediately joking nothing says efficiency like having two people do one job. To understand, this is a very exciting prospect for the people that voted for Donald Trump. Because in this statement, Trump said that DOGE will dismantle government bureaucracy, slash excess regulations, cut wasteful expenditures, and restructure federal agencies. And this as they help the Trump administration, quote, drive out massive waste and fraud, and quote, make the US government accountable to we the people. So as of right now, we really don't have any information about how DOGE will achieve those goals or how the effort will be funded and run. Also, right now, we really don't even know what kind of entity DOGE will be. Because while it sounds like it is part of the government, right, it's the Department of Government Efficiency, it's actually not a department at all. Though we do know this is Musk's brainchild. In fact, it actually appears to have first came up during a live stream back in August where Musk suggested that Trump create a government efficiency commission to audit the federal government and appoint him to lead it. Then a couple of days later, Musk tweeted an image of himself at a podium labeled Department of Government Efficiency with the caption, I am willing to serve. And then a few weeks after that, Trump announced that if elected, he would form a government efficiency commission and tap Musk to lead it. Though, I will say very notably, Trump doesn't use the term commission in the statement, but he does say that DOGE will, quote, provide advice and guidance from outside of government and that their work will conclude no later than July 4th, 2026. Right? And so that language appears to indicate that he's talking about a one-time commission, not a permanent department. Right? And that would actually make more sense, right? It's way easier to create this kind of commission on a bunch of different levels. Right? Forming a whole new department, it would require authorization from Congress and likely necessitate the allocation of millions or even billions of dollars in the hiring of staff. Or I guess in other words, it would like be creating a bureaucracy to cut bureaucracy. And then if Musk and Ramaswamy were to run a department, they would become federal employees, which then would mean they need to disclose various financial assets or entanglements and divest significant holdings, yada, yada. But commissions, I mean, those can be created unilaterally by the president through executive action, and they don't have the same requirements. And when it comes to external advisory bodies, one, the people in charge do not need to be federal employees. And two, commissions led by non-federal employees are governed by a totally different set of laws. And that's super significant because Musk does have a ton of potential conflicts of interest, right? He has deep financial entanglements with the federal government because many of the companies that he owns in the auto and space industries, they've grown through government contracts and subsidies. I mean, even just SpaceX alone, they've gotten more than $10 billion worth of federal contracts in the last decade. Also, those various businesses are regulated by multiple different federal agencies, and many of those companies, including SpaceX, Tesla, Neuralink, and X, they've been the subject of at least 20 different investigations or lawsuits by federal agencies. So basically, Musk would be given oversight of the agencies that police his companies. But with all that said, we're kind of in this waiting pattern, and it's unclear exactly how much power DOGE will actually have. And again, in large part, that's because all of this is so new, right? No one's really said or gone into the details about how this whole thing will fucking work. But I will say if it's similar to past commissions, like if that can be an indicator, the scope that Musk and Ramaswamy may have, it could be limited, right? And that because federal spending is controlled by Congress and the White House, and any recommendations DOGE makes for slashing regulations, cutting spending, and limiting bureaucracy will just be that, recommendations. Though I will say, notably, Republicans do have both chambers right now. But also, and I'm going to talk more about this later in the show, given what we saw with the Senate Majority Leader situation, there's a question of, will there be political will there? Though I would say that's not one-to-one because with a Senate Majority Leader, that was a secret vote. They won't get to do that if these recommendations become a bill and Trump puts the pressure on. And all of this is the scale of the stuff that Musk and Trump are talking about. It's pretty huge. But among other things, Musk has said that he wants to cut the number of federal agencies from over 400 to no more than 99 and cut federal spending by $2 trillion, which notably is almost a third of the $6.75 trillion the federal government spent last year. But I mean, we're talking about a figure that is more than the budgets of the Department of Defense, Education, and Homeland Security combined, which is why you have a number of experts saying that it is literally mathematically impossible, especially because Republicans aren't going to touch anything like the defense budget. But we'll see. My mindset for the next however many years is we'll see. Why not? Anything's possible, for better or worse. And actually, this is the perfect transition. On the note of anything is possible, let's talk about some of Trump's picks. Because we're seeing a mix of picks that for some, the Democrats are scratching their heads, and then others, MAGA world scratching their heads. Probably the guy getting the most attention right now, though, is the defense secretary pick. Because the guy in question there is Pete Hegseth. On one hand, he's a decorated Army combat veteran and a Princeton graduate, but on the other hand, he has no Pentagon or government experience outside of his military service, and he's best known as a Fox News host. So his name's not actually coming out of nowhere. During Trump's first term, Hegseth's name was floated as a possible pick to run the Department of Veterans Affairs. So actually, notably there, some of Hegseth's biggest critics have actually been leaders of veterans groups. And that might have something to do with the fact that Hegseth is the former CEO of Concerned Veterans for America, a group advocating for outsourcing veterans healthcare that was funded by the Koch brothers. Which is why you had people like Paul Rieckhoff, for example, founder of Independent Veterans of America, saying in a post on X, Hegseth is undoubtedly the least qualified nominee for SecDef in American history and the most overtly political. With him also saying, but this is also why others are going to be happy about the move, that Hegseth is a highly effective and ferocious media, culture, and political warrior for MAGA, saying he's beyond loyal to and trusted by Trump. And as far as what Hegseth might do in this position, we got a possible preview thanks to an interview that was published last week where he said,
well, first of all, you got to fire you got to fire the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and you got to fire this. I mean, obviously, you're going to bring in a new Secretary of Defense, but any general that was involved, general, admiral, whatever, that was involved in any of the DEI woke it's got to go.
And then with that, he specifically questioned the role of women in combat. But then separately, we saw Trump naming South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem to be his Secretary of Homeland Security, with a number of people confused why this position, though, it was expected that she would be a part of this. Because in case you forgot, she was actually on the short list to possibly be a VP, but then things got weird after she published a book where she, unprompted, told a story about shooting and killing her family's dog. So regarding Noem in this specific role, you had the Washington Post writing, Noem brings less relevant experience to the cabinet job than recent Homeland Security secretaries, including those who served during Trump's first term. But with that, I will say that Trump has named a couple of people that actually do seem to have the qualifications for the specific jobs that he wants to appoint them to. Folks like John Ratcliffe, for example, a former Texas congressman who served as the director of national intelligence during Trump's first term, as well as Representative Mike Waltz of Florida, who Trump selected to serve as his national security advisor. Right, and in addition to serving in the military, he held multiple roles at the Pentagon before being elected to Congress, where he also sat on key foreign policy committees. And then, after days of reports, Trump officially announced today that he's picked Senator Marco Rubio to be his Secretary of State. Right, and that would make him Trump's top foreign affairs advisor. And on that note, Rubio has one, said that Ukraine should try to negotiate a deal with Russia, even if it means giving up invaded territory, and two, lobbied against a ceasefire in Gaza. Very fantastic news for all the Jill Stein voters out there. He is very pro-Israel. But then finally, I was about to say that's where we are. We'll keep our eyes open because appointments are coming in fast and furious. But then we just got the news that Donald Trump has nominated Matt Gaetz to be the Attorney General, which I imagine is about to set social media on fire, and so we'll talk about that more soon. But I guess with all that said, as things are still developing, I'll pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts so far? Hey, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this clip from the full Philip DeFranco show. And also, a big thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring our Clips channel. Turn your passion into profit over at squarespace.com/Phil, or use the QR code. Because whether you're launching a business or a lucrative side hustle, your website is your digital business card. It's the only space where you control the story, no algorithms or distractions. And with Squarespace, it's so easy because they got a ton of stunning professional templates with drag and drop editing that makes site design incredibly simple, no coding required. So get started for free at squarespace.com/Phil, or scan the QR code on screen and use code Phil for 10% off when ready to launch. Squarespace.com/Phil.